So I'm recording, but I still haven't worked out how to record webcams because GoToMeeting doesn't do it for us. So it's just audio only. So
Okay,
people joining in live get the bonus of getting to look at you guys,
awesome.
which is pretty cool.
That is a good bonus.
Yeah,
Oh, awesome.
Hey, Dave.
you're both much more photogenic than I expected.
I've got lots of filters on the camera, so nice.
Cool. I think we can get started. So this is the first time we're doing this in the morning. We usually try and schedule them after work to try and catch everyone possible. So I know there's several people who are tuning in while at work, which is cool. We'll keep them from doing their normal job. Okay, so we'll get started. So welcome everyone to the third Imirt Inspire. I have Dave Lloyd and Barney Cummings here. They are the duo behind Crawl, and they're based in Australia. So thanks for joining us. Hey guys.
Hey,
Hey.
nice to see you.
So we have the chat. I guess you guys can see that. So anyone who's listening in, if you have questions, pop them into chat, and I will get around to them in due time. So I'll fire the questions for Dave and Barney. And I have a whole page of questions here, so to get us started. So I've been following you guys for quite a while actually, and bumped into Dave at GDC 2 years ago. Spotted his badge with Powerhoof on it, and just went over and introduced myself. Like neither of us was exhibiting; he was just wandering around.
Yeah.
And at the time, basically, you had just gone through Greenlight with Crawl in 24 hours, and it amazed me because right then I was just a couple months later put my own game through Greenlight.
Yeah, I think you
So
just released a trailer a few months
yeah,
earlier or
yeah.
something.
So it was
Very
really
keen
like an
that.
exciting time for me to see someone like you just kind of blow through marketing like that and just blow
Yeah.
up. It was really, really cool. So I personally have been following you guys for ages. So I have loads of questions. But kind of let's maybe just go back a little bit before that. And I want to ask you how did you two end up making games? Kind of what's the short version of your kind of game dev history?
Um, I started with this adventure game studio program, which lets you really easily just stick a background and character in a room and make an adventure game. Because I played all those when I was a kid and stuff and loved them. And that was just a really super easy tool to use, and suddenly I could kind of make these kind of games. And I was kind of in second year uni, and I wasn't really enjoying my course, and so I switched to computer science and started just doing more personal side projects, and then thought I'd probably get a job doing web design kind of or web development stuff, but then just kind of took a punt at going for a couple of jobs in the games industry in Melbourne, and got the first one I went for, which was pretty awesome partly because the company was just hiring anyone who would agree to work for like no money, and Barney was there as well, so that's where we met, and that was like 9 years ago now, probably, or something like that.
Yeah, which company was that?
Yeah, Red Tribe in Melbourne.
And what
Yeah,
kind of games
I
were
don't
they
think you
making?
would have. We were doing like what was it? We've been Wii and PS2 and Xbox 360 at the time, but they were like licensed titles from the US. Basically, the way it worked, there's a lot of companies in Melbourne that would just bid to get like the rights to do like a movie tie-in game that someone wanted to do, and so you basically just say, okay, we can do it for less money than anyone else, and we'll do it in less time, and
Yeah.
then you know whoever like if it's Warner Brothers or whatever, they'll be like, oh yeah, we'll get you to do it because we don't want to pay any money. We want it to be really cheap, and so you're basically just making really terrible games.
And
And on a really short timeline, and we're all
yeah,
just juniors. We had no idea what we were doing, so they were all really bad. but
but it
but
helped
we
you
kind of got
professionally make games and get some
yeah,
experience
yeah, no,
advancing.
we learned so much because you're kind of getting thrown in the deep end, and I was working with some like pretty smart engineers as well who were and I learned a lot from them, and also just sort of had to learn a bit about the kind of how to the things that companies do wrong, I guess. You learn a lot about that.
I think
Whereas when you're
that,
working at a really nice company, everything just seems to work and you don't really know why.
And it just seems
that
easy.
forced me, Dave. it forced me and Dave to take charge a lot more than we would have, because we could see so many things being done so obviously wrongly that we were able to just stand up and say, look, let's do this, let's do that. And so we wound up in much higher sort of ranking positions than we should rightly have been in, just because, you know, we were willing to try and make things work a bit better. So like the company was a bit of a mess, but yeah, it was a really good experience for us.
That's really cool. Yeah, Barney, what was your background before working for them?
I made a lot of board games when I was young.
Nice.
Yeah, I was into just making stuff in general. I was like really into Super Mario Kart. I made a board game like interpretation of Super Mario Kart with like a
Whoa.
physically built little version of Ghost Valley 1 for anyone who was super into that. And I sort of had like made a version of the rules where you know, it was trying to sort of keep the different qualities of the characters and of the items and stuff, and sort of have them be equivalent to in the game, but just all dice rolling and stuff like that. And I was really into that. I was into D&D, but not proper D&D. I was like way too young to understand all like really complicated D&D, so I sort of just like made this bastardized rule set of D&D that was simpler, that was much more sort of, I don't know, much more fun for me and my cousins and stuff. And then I think the first video game I made was with HyperCard on the Mac,
Oh, wow.
which was like a thing for making
I remember using it.
presentations.
Cool. Yeah, but you could link, it was like really basic PowerPoint, but with hyperlinks. So you could make it choose
Exactly,
from the
yeah.
best kind of game.
Yeah, it was like PowerPoint, but you could make a button and you could script the button to go to different pages, and you could say, go to this page, wait 0.1 seconds, then go to that page, wait 0.1 seconds, and so you could use that to essentially animate. And so I'd sort of, it was like a presentation with all these buttons, but when you clicked on a button, it'd be, so I'd basically made these choose your own adventure games that would kind of scroll through pixel animations when you clicked on a button. And so the game mechanics were just randomly press the buttons until it tells you that you died, and then start again and just randomly click them in a different order. But you know, I still felt like I was making more of an experience than you know, just a flat animation. And yeah, but I was very animation focused, and so I worked in animation, and then I just wound up through looking for animation jobs in Melbourne, which is where all my family are from. I just, all the Melbourne animation jobs are in games, so I went, oh, well, I guess I'll go for a job in games. I'd never really considered that I could get a job in games. I don't know, for some reason it was not on my radar. It just seemed like I'd never considered that people actually made them, even though I was really into
Making
games.
them
I just
already?
thought, oh, yeah, you just have to animate for film or TV or something like that. So yeah, I got that job at Red Tribe, at the place where I met Dave, and instantly there was a lot of things wrong with the way they were doing things, and so just through trying to force them to implement my animations in the right way, I ended up inadvertently becoming a designer.
Cool. And how long did you guys work there together?
I think it was like 4 years or something. Not
Yeah,
ages. Well, I mean, I guess it's pretty long in terms of working in a game studio. But yeah, then that company folded. We got to start working on an IP where Barney was like creative director, and that was going to be awesome. It was going to be like
And it brought down the
a
company.
beat 'em up on the Wii. But yeah, we basically spent all the company's money, and then the company shut down. So that's pretty
the
good.
company spent its own money making terrible cheerleading games.
Yeah,
Failed.
yeah, that's true. And then we both kind of Uh, I went and got a job at Firemint in Melbourne that were making iPhone games. They made Flight Control
They
and
made flight
Real
control.
Racing. Yeah, yeah.
Did you work on that?
So I worked on it after it had already been released, so kind of. I don't get the credit though. I
Okay,
had
very
another
cool.
one.
I don't. I'd say everyone here has heard of it or probably played it.
Yeah. So they did really well. Like they were really and they were a really smart company. They knew what they were doing, and compared to like Red Tribe, they really, yeah, they had their like shit together, and so it was really nice working for them after working at such a sort of not non-managed company that didn't really, yeah, that just didn't really know what they were doing. Um, but yeah, so I worked there, and then that got bought out by EA, and Barney, meanwhile, had got a job at another company, Iron Monkey, which had also got bought out by EA, and then our studios got merged back together, and so by EA. So
So
yeah,
basically,
ended up working
EA
together
created
again.
Powerhoof by
Yeah.
buying all their companies and putting us back in the same building again, and then making us work on really boring games.
So when did you guys decide to go by yourself then?
Um, would have been early. When was it? What is it now? 2013, I guess. But yeah,
The
like
start of
start of the
13.
year. I think like over that Christmas break, we were both kind of talking about quitting and when we are going to do it, and sort of
I just
realizing, oh,
said
we're
it
not,
in a
we
really
don't have to just stay there
conversational
forever.
way. I said like conversationally to Dave, I'm thinking of quitting, like, don't you think we could do more fun things and stuff in a completely I'm never really going to do it way. And then Dave just went, yeah, that's a good idea. And then he just quit. And I was like, oh, shit, I've got to do it now. And so, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, it was weird. It was like because you're working for a decent salary, and it's like and lots of like awesome people, and the studio was really good. Um,
I'm guessing they had a mean contract where you're not allowed to work on anything else.
yeah, that was a big thing
Yeah.
for me was
That would be EA
like I
style, I'm
can't really
guessing.
do what I would like it's my hobby, like making little games or whatever, and I'm not like technically not allowed to do my
Hmm.
hobby, which is kind of wearing me down a lot. Um,
Yeah.
I always think that's a
yeah,
negative approach for the big companies,
It's
you
such a
know,
yeah,
bad
yeah,
approach.
absolutely.
to quash
Dave,
people's creativity. I don't know.
Dave
Mm.
and
I'd be
another
against
guy
that.
we worked with there, that they had even made a small little side project game in the company, and it was basically complete. but it we can talk about it vaguely,
Oh
kind of,
God.
Yeah,
can
yeah,
we?
no, okay,
I mean, they'd made a little project, and the company didn't see it as being worth sort of following through and commercializing, which is fair
Yeah.
enough because for a company that's a lot of wheels they've got to put in motion. But I think that seeing that happen was just really
Mhm.
demoralizing to be like, even at this company, if you do convince them to let you make like a small little cool thing, it's not even worth their time to release it.
Wow.
That
Mm.
was
Yeah.
just, yeah,
Mhm.
I yeah.
it was a
I
cool game.
I would feel how you I think felt as well. Just really
Mm.
negative about that approach. Okay, so you both quit. So you went into it full time from the start
Mhm.
as
Yeah,
Powerhoof,
yeah,
and it's just
yeah,
the
because we
two of
kind
you,
of
right?
we'd had savings, and we were
Okay.
kind of living pretty cheaply. So yeah,
And
and
was
neither of us were married, or neither of us had kids or anything yet, and that was potentially coming, and now it's come for me. So it was like, oh well, if I'm gonna quit and be a
now's the
starving
time.
artist, then we should do it now. Yeah.
Was
Um,
Screen Australia still giving out money for games then? Or
yeah, there's
Film
Screen
Australia? I
Australia was
can't remember
doing
what they're
some,
called.
and there's Film Victoria and Screen Australia. There was kind of two separate things. We got a grant from Film Victoria, which was it was a loan, but then and we got this loan that was pretty awesome, and then it's a sort of loan where you pay it back if you make the money back, kind of, and you pay it back
Yeah,
on a small
very good.
percentage of your profit, so it's a pretty good deal. But then there was a change of government and change of policy, and then they just said that we don't have to pay it back, so that was pretty awesome as well.
So they
Um,
stopped giving out money, but they also didn't
yeah,
care about getting the loans back. That is
yeah,
crazy.
exactly. Yeah,
Wow,
but the Screen Australia thing completely stopped with the change of government. That was really
I heard
frustrating
that.
for a lot of
Yeah, because
companies. Yeah.
I was looking at that and saying, wow, look at this. They're like funding actual creative projects. This is so cool. And then someone, Australian person told me, oh yeah, they did, but they stopped doing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Film Victoria, I think, is still doing some stuff, which is good. Yeah.
Yeah, they've started some stuff up again now that looks all right. Some people that I know have got some money.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
So
yeah.
that
Ben Porter and stuff just got some,
just
which is
that's
pretty
something
awesome.
that hasn't happened yet in Ireland is that style of direct funding for games from Ireland itself.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
we're like, there's always a lot of people trying to get tax breaks and trying to get funding and stuff like that, and because it does make a big difference, but it's stuff that kind of seems to come and go as governments like decide how they want to be looked at, budget-wise or whatever. So it's always
Yeah.
something which is kind of, if you've got it might go away pretty soon, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a funny one because that didn't seem to run that long either. It wasn't like it had been running for
Yeah, I mean
20
the
years or
Screen
something.
Australia one, came up and was there for I don't know, months and then gone again. Um, yeah, really it was very quick. And they'd sort of budgeted like $12 million or something over a period of years, and then like none of that was spent, and then it all just got taken away, kind of thing. So it's really frustrating. Um, but yeah, I mean,
We'll bear that in mind
we're
here.
sort of
If the government starts handing out money, we'll all just grab it and spend it in the
yeah,
first.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
jump in. We kind of when we quit, we sort of thought, oh, we'll spend a year and we'll work out what we'd be happy to kind of sort of yeah, we'll work out like how much money we're happy to spend, and like, oh yeah, we can live pretty frugally for a year and not really cut into our savings too much or whatever. And we'll try and just like make a bunch of stuff in the first year and see if we can like sell it, or and then if we think by the end of the first year we've got something we might be able to sell and make some money, then we'll keep going. Otherwise, I don't know, we can start looking for contract work or
Nice, yeah.
that kind of thing. So
So you're
kind
pretty
of think
sensible
about it
about
like
it,
that.
basically.
Yeah, there was no real downside. It's not like we have to buy a cafe and then spend all this money doing it up, and then if no one comes and buys coffees or something, then we've lost all this money. It's just like that doesn't really cost us anything except
And you had a really
that we quit
friendly.
our jobs and we'd have to go back and like go, oh, can we have our jobs back or something if we failed. So,
So you
but
didn't quit
yeah, it
your
was still kind
jobs
of a
in like
scary thing.
spectacular bridge burning fashion then.
Nah.
So
Yeah, I think, sorry, we treated it a lot more like, let's take a holiday, like in which we try and make some games, and just if it looks like it might turn into a business, then let's do that. But we weren't really relying on the money from the business. We're like, oh, maybe we'll spend a year and we'll make a cool thing we're proud of, and then we just have to get jobs again, and that we'd still be happy with that. So that's kind of what I expected to happen.
that seems
Yeah.
very sensible.
Yeah.
And it was just the two of you, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And what was the kind of breakdown? You both, Barney, you're more in art and animation, and Dave more in programming, or are you both kind of dipping into everything? You're both doing game design as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, both kind of share everything else. And I think both of us would have quit individually and tried to just make a game on their own. Like Barney had been doing stuff in multimedia fusion and stuff, and I do bad art, so and that's partly why I wanted to work with Barney, because I sort of thought we can both do parts of what the other one wants to do, and kind of I think it made sense as a partnership. It was very kind of equal.
I think that's definitely one of the hardest things, is to like
Find the right
be
person.
really confident that the other person is going to take it as seriously.
Yeah.
Because it's the kind of thing that, I mean, I would just daydream talk with every one of my game developer friends about, let's make games together, and they would all be excited and they would all say yes and they would all mean it, but it's hard to know, that like someone's going to sort of, just
Go for it with the
actually
same.
follow through on every
Yeah.
little detail. And I was really confident that Dave would, and I think he felt the same way. And so I think we were lucky. Like, it's hard to find someone that, like that.
I guess it helped that you guys have worked so much together. You
Yeah,
already,
definitely.
had that
Yeah.
relationship. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so what were your first ideas? Like, how did you start making a game? Was it Crawl?
Yeah, we did game jam sort of stuff. Well, we've been doing it at EA, just doing like while we were still working there. I mean, we kind of had this idea to do, or Barney had the idea to do, like we'll just make a bunch of local multiplayer games because they'd be kind of fun things to play, and in the game jam kind of fashion, but really more about getting together to play the games. So we didn't worry about like having a time limit. It was more just, well, we've picked this Saturday in a few weeks. So you obviously have to get the game done by then, or at least done to the point where when you bring it on the day, we can like add sounds or add music or add art and like
So there
play it a
were
bit and then decide how to change it.
were
And
there
so
like game
Crawl.
dev events you were bringing it to?
No, this was
It was
Just
just
my house.
yourselves.
a bunch of our friends.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, us and some people we'd worked with at EA and worked with at Red Tribe, and yeah, just yeah, and so really just people who are kind of close friends.
Yeah.
Um, when we're kind of antisocial and not very good at organizing bigger events than that. Although we kind of always talk about, oh, we should do that again, except make it big, and but then we just like don't do it. Yeah, and so that was where we had a few games, both Crawl and then that regular human basketball thing came out of that kind of game jam
So kind of like
where
a
we really
self-imposed
just
game
wanted to
jam.
make something that we thought would be the only like I guess theme was just like make something that you think would be fun to play with our friends or whatever, which I think was a pretty good thing to do because you can sort of just make a jokey game,
Yeah.
or you can just think, oh, I've got this interesting idea that I think my friends would think was interesting as well or something. And, yeah, so that was
I'm
kind
an
of cool.
absolutely huge fan of kind of sharing early, of getting people to play your game like when it's really rough.
Mm.
And I think game jams are amazing for that because at the end of one day you're getting people to play something, so you're really focused. You get that
I,
feedback
I
really
Yeah,
quick.
think a big part of the sort of event that we were organizing was that we had absolutely no intention to try and make anything of any of the games. Um, it was purely making something that will make your friends laugh a little bit on that one day, and then they can be throwaway. And so, although like that also encouraged us to make a whole lot of things that were just dumb little in-jokes, which were a lot of fun, it also meant that really weird ideas, like the initial idea of Crawl was pretty weird, and I think if it was in an environment where I was worried about it having to turn into something good, I probably never would have gone down that path and invested the effort into making the prototype. But because I just knew, oh, it just has to make my friends laugh like this one day, then it's fine to try something really kind of dumb or just strange or just unpredictable like that.
And so you can kind of discover kind of a new space for your game to exist in. You
Yeah,
know,
I mean,
because you're
it
willing
just
to just fire it out there and do something silly. You're not thinking about, oh, how maybe marketable is this, or how big is the market for this
yeah.
game, or
Especially like back
that's
then where local multiplayer wasn't a thing, especially on PC.
so
It was
yeah. So
definitely
local
not.
multiplayer has always been good for game jams. It's the best
Yeah,
thing to do at a game jam if you want to have fun and have people play your game.
yeah, and it's quick as well. Yeah.
Yeah, but like, were you playing other local multiplayer games on
Not
consoles even?
really.
Like, what
Oh yeah,
what
no,
made
we
you do
had
it?
we had we were getting together and playing stuff periodically, but there wasn't much.
there just wasn't anything out at the time.
Yeah, we
Like
played a lot of Castle Crashes, and but
yeah,
we'd go
Yeah,
around
that's a
and
good
play
example.
NES games or like N64 games like Mario Tennis or something,
Yeah, okay.
um, game games, but mostly that kind of thing. Yeah, I don't think there was actually much that we played that was more modern. There was definitely some, and a few little indie games. Like I think
I
and
just
and
very much I just had lots of memories of Bomberman and stuff that I played when I was young,
Oh
and
yeah.
I remembered. I guess I was just very aware of there wasn't actually that much like content in Bomberman in terms of things that would take a long time to make, but the amount of game that there was once you had four people playing it against each other was really big. And so in my head, that I guess that was kind of Bomberman was the roadmap, like this single screen, just a few items, and the people kind of create their own fun against each other. And then of course, Crawl ended up being way bigger than that and full of all this content. But that was the
That
initial
was the
goal.
idea.
That like,
So
yeah, exactly, just really simple little things.
was that first prototype you made? What could you do in it?
I mean, you could do
Was it like one
basically
one
the
screen and one person was a hero and
no
one.
the first prototype was actually dungeon crawling, and you would just go through a doorway, and it would just randomly put a different room in front of you, and randomly put some doors on the walls. But the initial prototype, there was no ghosts or anything. The other three players would just randomly just appear as monsters, and you'd have to sort of wiggle your joystick a lot to figure out which one is
Mhm.
you, because everyone would also be wiggling their joysticks. So like, walk left and right to see, am I the blue guy? Which guy am I? And then you're already dead by the time that had happened. But it was basically um,
And it was
I
already
just
fun,
made a
I'm
form.
guessing? Like people were
Yeah,
already
yeah.
yelling at each other?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I got over there and I'd made the framework where like a monster could have a sprite and then he could spawn damage effects and they could look like anything and he could have a speed rating and a damage rating and a rate of fire and things like that. But I hadn't actually filled that with content, and so when we got round to Dave's place to test it out, I just got all of my friends, like everybody, just
Name
draw a
it.
monster and we'll just like we'll just make them all different. Dave drew some like skeletons, and a friend drew a little rabbit guy, and another friend drew this guy with a tongue, and it was just all these stupid little monsters, and we just kind of chucked them in, and there was no balance. Actually, that's something that I regret a little bit with Crawl, is that now it's sort of competitive and everything has to be balanced, but something that I really liked from that original prototype was that you had really terrible monsters and really good monsters, and they didn't need to be balanced, and that was a really exciting thing, and so you'd
So
spawn in as just...
when you got a big monster, you were like, yes.
Yeah, and also when you got a terrible monster and you managed to get a kill with it, it was just really exciting.
That's
But
true.
our players would just complain too much, and it would derail things and be really annoying, and no one would
Well,
choose
no,
like
as soon as we let
really
you
terrible
choose,
monsters.
choose the sort of upgrade trees, you can't.
Yeah.
You sort of, it just means that monster never gets chosen, which is
Yeah.
kind of not as fun.
That's a cool idea though, and yeah, I really agree. Sometimes when you're just like, I see this in like strategy games, which I enjoy, but if you make a strategy game that's PvP, then you lose that imbalanced feel because it has to be perfectly
Yeah.
matched, and then it gets boring to
Yeah.
me. While if you're playing a strategy
Mm.
game like Civ against the computer, you're just like, oh, it's all about the imbalance and coming up with a
Yeah.
combo that crushes things, and then you feel great.
I mean, we
Mm.
come against that issue, and I guess the comparison is Binding of Isaac, where you can have a run where you're having a really hard time and then you just die, or you can have a run where you get just completely overpowered, and it feels amazing.
Yes.
But because we're multiplayer, we can't really let someone
So
get that, which is really frustrating because we have all the elements to give it to someone, and it feels really good when it does happen. And so we try and give it a bit, but not let it get completely out of hand. But you can't get that just really exciting, like, oh, I happen to roll double sixes kind of feeling, when it also has to try and be a balanced multiplayer game.
yeah, I actually have a whole load of questions about balance that I want to get back to. I'm just gonna
We have no
swap over.
answers about that.
I'll get you.
Stay in
So
early access forever. And keep changing it every time.
I've a question here from Barry Keegan. He's asking Barney, just wondering if going with the pixel art style was purely for visual appeal, or are there advantages you found using that medium?
So I mean, it's definitely both. I mean, I think for me, like my all my experience in the games industry has been in 3D animation, and so I felt more confident about doing that. But firstly, it was nostalgic. Like the first animations I did when I was 13, using HyperCard and stuff, they were pixel, and so it felt like more of a fun, personal, nostalgic sort of thing to go back to pixel art. But then there's like a fidelity overhead. Like as soon as you raise the fidelity of the model,
Starts
there's
getting close to like Uncanny Valley silliness.
well, it just starts to look wrong when there's less animation. So if I'm just walking around and I'm a really realistic model, it looks wrong for me to just instantly flip to face the way that I'm moving. I need to strafe, and I need to backpedal, and I need to do all these other things just for the movement to match the fidelity of the model. But all those animations, the left strafe, the right strafe, the forwards, the backpedal, the fast run, the slow run, all those things that you do when you're doing a higher fidelity
And all the transitions.
3D character, none of those have mechanical purpose. Like you only need one animation of movement, and so if you're an indie developer with limited resources, that's all wasted time. You're not getting any more gameplay from those. All you're doing is trying to match the fidelity. And so I knew I wanted to do 30, 40, 50 monsters, and then there's only one of me, so I couldn't do something where I had that much wasted overhead.
And
But
yet, what you've made has a large amount of animations, but it would have just been insanely more.
exactly, and so so it meant that I could focus the animations where I wanted them instead of them just being like a sort of base requirement level that was out of hand. So it meant that I can make a new monster in a day. Just like draw a sprite, do a run animation, design some attacks, do a death frame, and that's about it. And so it means that I think when I talk about it like that, it sounds like I'm saying, oh, well, this is cheap to make, so, so we made something cheaper, but it's more that it's quick to make, so that we weren't bogged down by all of this overhead. Every time we had an idea, every time we wanted to prototype or try something new, when that process is slow and requires a lot of things just to see the character move and make it, see if it works at all,
Kind of stops you
you're very,
trying weird
you're,
stuff.
yeah, exactly. You just become very risk averse. You don't
Yes.
want to try a strange thing because it takes you a day and a half just to do the walk animations.
So like a big
And
slime monster or something, particularly something like if you have a humanoid monster and it's all rigged up in 3D, then making more humanoid monsters is
exactly.
probably what you keep doing. Okay, yeah, really cool.
And so many of the sort of monster functionalities that are in there that have worked have been a big gamble. Like as I was making them, I'm like, oh, this is a bit of a bastardization of the systems that we've got, but maybe this would be interesting to do this or that. And I feel like if there was a really high sort of overhead just to see if it works in the first place, I just wouldn't have tested it. And it's the same with the animation it's the animation across the board, I think. Like, because I can draw a character frame very quickly, it means if I'm halfway through drawing something and I think, oh, actually I can just do this completely different animation that'll look better, I'm fine. I can just throw that away and just try it. I'm not scared to have wasted, that bit of time. And so, yeah.
I think that's a
And
really good piece of advice there, which is, yeah, rapid prototyping unlocks other things, like what you just said. You can take risks with, small bits of design you're doing, like monster designs.
yeah, so I don't think of it as like doing, worse art in order to allow rapid prototyping. It's just about being really intelligent about what art you choose so that it gets across everything you want to show stylistically, but doesn't bog you down. And so it's a sort of balancing act of finding something that you're still happy with how it looks, but it's not wasting heaps and heaps of your time. And you can do that in 3D as well. Like the project we were doing at Red Tribe before it went down was a kind of 3D thing, and like it's not specifically pixel art that gives you this thing. It's like project to project. You've just got to kind of feel your way of,
But your
depending on how many characters and
but
what
your
they're going to be
visual
doing.
style
You can
does
sort of,
kind of define some of that, like the visual style you choose and the
Mm.
fidelity.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
cool.
because there are a lot of drawbacks with 2D art, just in terms of not having a skeletal structure under your character that you can attach things to, or you can change their outfit but keep the same animations and things like that. So
Sure.
yeah, project to project it's going to be different, but I'm happy we landed on pixel art for Crawl. I'm surprised the art has gone as well as it has.
It looks amazing. One of the best looking pixel art games, I think. And I think it's down to the animations, which I've read one of your blog posts, I think, where you kind of show the process for one of your monsters. I find that very interesting.
Yeah.
So you draw, like, do you draw the first, like, just draw the picture and then you kind of block it out, do some animations, and then essentially draw each frame by hand?
Yeah, it is all drawn by hand, but that's
What kind of tools are you using there?
uh, just Photoshop, but I use a Wacom tablet so I can just draw straight on the screen. But there are a lot of really great, especially pixel art animators who just draw it with the mouse. It's just, whatever you're used to, whatever you can do sort of quickly. But yeah, that's the other thing, that I'm not I'm much more of an animator than an artist, and so if I had gone really high fidelity, that would have put a lot more light on the art, but then a lot more overhead on the animation, and I know that the art is not my strength. The way the stuff moves is my strength, and so if I go really low fidelity, I can put all my time into the way it moves and not spend hours like fussing over the shading on an arm or trying to draw a foreshortened hand with the fingers just right and things like that.
And I think that's worked out. And engine-wise, you guys are using Unity,
Yeah, yeah.
and because I think you're doing stuff with the art as well. You're doing a lot of nice lighting and stuff on top of that.
No, we're
No?
pretty basic. We're not really doing much in terms of shaders. We've just got a kind of
But a flicker effect that's over the
color
top of it.
grading thing. Yeah, yeah, we're keeping it pretty like shader light. Um, hmm.
But I mean, there's more than
Y-
just what Barney is producing. You're also doing some stuff programmatically. Just imagine.
no, not really. No,
Hmm.
most of it's just drawn,
In fact, I'm
and
often
then
embarrassed that we're not using like any 3D lights or anything in there.
Okay. So that's
Pretty
all
much
done
everything
by hand,
is
basically, then.
drawn.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, cool. Um, so here's a related question from Andrew Hines. How do you find using Unity for 2D? Any major tips or tricks for nice effects?
Well, we started before they had any 2D stuff in, so it's all like 3D collision, which was really horrible to get it to work. So now like the 2D collision's heaps better. We're using an extension X2D, which it's not really supported anymore, and now with the Unity 5, it's definitely not supported. But it had some nice animation tools, um, but probably for future projects we'd maybe look at Toolkit 2D or just the vanilla X2D stuff and build some vanilla Unity stuff and build some tools on top of that. But the 2D animation tools they have are pretty limited, I think, for the sort of thing we do where we've just got thousands of sprites and hundreds of animations or probably thousands of animations. But yeah, it's just the workflow is pretty clunky. So I think if you want to make a big game, it's the sort of thing where I think you're going to want some tools built on top of it to be able to do if you're doing lots of frames of animation and things. Um, but Unity's been great. Like in the past, I've always worked with C++ in-house engines, and I really love C++. It's like really like that language, but uh, you're just writing boilerplate stuff all the time, and you're not writing it better than anyone else. It's just the same result to the player, and I kind of got bored of doing kind of engine system code, and wanted to just have that stuff done and just be working on the gameplay and working on game. So that was why we kind of decided to do Unity, and yeah, it's been really good. Um, it's really nice being able to get things up really quickly and have features there, which we sort of just realize all of a sudden, like, we can just chuck this thing in really quickly because there's already a system for it, and have it work really nicely. Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
And the other thing with Unity that's really good is how easy it is to build tools. So the way me and Barney work, I tend to just expose in Unity's inspector enough stuff for Barney to be able to manipulate whatever the component is. Say it's like a monster component, to be able to, so he can create attacks and create effects,
Oh, that's really
and
cool.
basically build a monster without any code having to change. And the monster might do something that I didn't even know it was possible to do, just because it's of the flexibility that's built in, and it's just so easy to make it so Barney doesn't have to touch any code and still and have a kind of a tool to be able to use that makes sense for him, because that was never something that really ever happened in the in-house engines that we had. Like we would have someone working on tools, but they just have so much to do, or they'd just be too busy working on an exporter for getting the 3D animations into the game or something like that. And that would just end up being some really horrible, clunky thing that the artists had to go through, just because there was never people put on that task, because it's not directly adding to the game in a visible way, so it's really hard. People tend to not sort of put resources onto it, and so having Unity being that resource is really good. Yeah.
Very nice. And kind of linked to that, how are you guys kind of collaborating? Is Barney always working in your baby room, or do you have like an office?
No, we were kind of going over, like I was going to Barney's one week and he'd come to mine the next just for one day a week, and then we just Skype every morning.
Okay.
Now I just tend to go to his because there's too
Okay.
much baby screaming at my house. Yeah.
But we usually just work from home and have a Skype chat in the morning from our separate homes.
And then how are you maintaining your Unity project between you using
SVN.
Okay. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's worked out okay?
Because there's only two of us, that's not a problem. Yeah, it becomes problematic when you've got a lot of people, and especially if you've got two people editing art or something, or two people editing a scene, it gets a bit fiddly to manage that. But with just the two of us, if I have to do something that I know Barney needs to work on, I'll just say, hey, don't touch this thing for a little bit, and
Okay,
that's
yeah.
never been a problem.
I have heard some nightmares around Unity where you have to be careful with Unity not to both be touching the same scene.
It's actually a lot better now that there's like text assets and stuff. You can have a problem and you can merge the issues out. But it's still like on any project, source control stuff's always a bit of a problem at some stage where
some
two
point.
people edit the same thing, and yeah.
Cool. So I just want to kind of go on to Crawl and how you guys started releasing it. So the first I heard of it, God, I can't remember, but it was already on my radar before you guys released the trailer somehow. I can't remember where you were sharing it. So here's my question. When did you start sharing outside your group of friends that you were working on the game? I know you did Greenlight. It was it was certainly before March 2013. It was probably February 2013 you did that. No, 2014,
I think we went to Australia.
Yeah.
And we were just, we weren't showing anything or anything like that, but we had quit, and we were like, oh, well, we might, meet some people there. So we just made sure we had a trailer. This was like a really early, much more terrible trailer than the one people
Before
know.
the voiceover?
Yeah, before that.
We put it out with it didn't have any sound or music.
With no sound.
And then,
Yeah. It was
people
just
complained, so we added some music.
If we met people, we could say, we're making this thing,
And you had some
here's a
gameplay.
link to a video of it on the internet. And so we did that, and then I started sharing it on TigSource.
Okay, that's probably where I started seeing you guys. Yep.
Yeah, it would have been. And it's, I think lucky for us, it's a good project to share because there's heaps of animations in it, and
Very visual,
animated GIFs are like
actually, and you guys
the
have
most shareable.
Yeah, and you guys have really nailed animated GIFs. Who produces them?
That's all.
That's all you.
Yeah.
Do you just record gameplay and convert it, or are you like handcrafting those? Because they're always like, ridiculoly good.
Thanks. I mean, so there's some recorded gameplay which is usually pretty easy to do. The hardest thing is because it's a multiplayer game, and if I'm trying to record something that's got multiple players having action, and so we've got bots, and so trying to get the bots to do what I want, and they'll they don't cooperate most of the time, and so it's got to do a lot of takes and like, no, don't run over there, do this, attack me like this, oh, stupid bot, and do a whole lot of takes of that. But and then usually we do a bit of unique content as well, where I'll just animate, like I like animating little pixelated.
Or the IRS guy, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that was something that I just wanted to do as like a joke to make myself laugh, really. But yeah, well, I like to put in a little bit of like little pixelated versions of me and Dave doing stuff to make it a bit more, I don't know, a bit more fun for us, I guess. So it's like us like chatting and presenting our silly game, and so that stuff I'll animate unique every time, and that's usually what takes the longest, because I don't really know what I'm doing, and so I'm just kind of like making it up as I go, and I'll think like, oh, I've got a joke about this, and I'll start animating it and realize it doesn't really work, or it just takes too many shots, and it just takes like too much setup, and it's not going to make sense. GIF needs to make sense just like in 5 seconds, and so I'll start a joke and then realize it's not going anywhere, and then go, well, I've animated a guy like going like this and another guy going like that. Is there a different joke that I can make that still doesn't waste those animations that I've just done. But that's really fun. I really like putting that stuff out.
So that stuff makes for really nice marketing materials. It's just kind of what you
Yeah,
guys have been using it
yeah.
for.
Oh, actually, that probably would be the first thing that people would have heard of before the trailer. Would have been our oh no, that was after the trailer. The launch delay GIF taxpayer thingy.
That's
Yeah,
before,
yeah,
yeah.
that was after. Yeah, but
I think there was a
that's
couple
really
of
good.
articles on that very first trailer.
That first trailer
Have we
blew up,
got
Yeah.
in fairness. So
after that?
you got a really
No,
great,
no, no. Before this is before the
oh, the
Greenlight one.
earlier
Yeah,
one. Okay,
before the
cool.
one
Yeah,
that
yeah,
people haven't heard of. It was so
yeah.
bad. It was so bad.
I think it's really important to actually share your game at a state where you're still very embarrassed about it. I think that's
Yeah,
an
Yeah, yeah.
important step.
that's been a really hard thing to get my head around, but yeah, it definitely is. Still, people that I talk to today are like, they're, some little kid working on a thing that just nobody in the world cares about, and they're saying to me, "Oh, I don't want to,
I don't
I
want
don't
people to
want
see
to
it.
blow it. I don't want people to steal my ideas, or I don't want to, like waste." I'm like, just trying to tell them, you've got to convince these people to be interested in your game. No, that's like the biggest challenge. Like, just being lost in this sea of millions of people, and people having so many options, and people having so many games coming out. Like that's the only enemy, is nobody knowing that you exist, even though you're making something cool. So yeah,
100% agree with you
but
there.
I used to feel like that. Sorry?
100%, just 100% agree.
Mm.
That convincing people you exist, that's the hardest, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So then, kind of coming to 2014, you guys put it up on Greenlight and got greenlit in that same day, which is pretty
Yeah.
amazing. And that trailer you released then was super. So this is a trailer with loads of the game animation and an amazing voiceover, and that blew up.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
that
I
was
mean,
a big surprise.
was that like, what did you guys do to seed that? Who'd you send it to? Just so we
Uh,
can all
So
do it.
well, we
we
sent
just
it
made
to,
that ourselves.
yeah, we did a bit of a mail out kind of thing, but pretty bad. Like we didn't have any emails. I just kind of
It
looked at
was
a few
just Twitter that
websites
did it.
and yeah,
Like,
and put it on Twitter, and it was really, yeah, people just shared it themselves. So,
we had a press list of people that we were going to send it to, but because we're in Australia, when it gets to the evening, that's the middle of the night in the US, and so we thought, oh, we'll get up early in the morning and we'll send it then, because that'll be like lunchtime in the US, and so we just posted the GIF on Twitter. Posted
the
the
video.
link to the trailer on Twitter, went to bed, and then when we woke up in the morning, all of the websites we were going to mail to had already done an article about it, and it's like, oh, I guess we don't need to do that press list, and that made us think that marketing was easy, which is
That's really cool. Yeah. So I saw you guys do that, and 2 months later, I started my own Greenlight campaign and tried to do what you did. Not quite as well, but yeah, like we saved our trailer till like that was the thing we were getting press to talk about, and Greenlight campaign was
yeah.
like a side effect.
I mean, I do think that, like, yeah, the visual animated things are, the most valuable currency in getting people to share and notice, any of this stuff. And so it's very unlucky for anyone whose game concepts aren't easily communicated in just a really short animation or a video or something. And we were just very lucky that our stuff is very animation based and is very easy to share like that.
What
But
do you
yeah, I
think
think
about the kind of your game's hook? Do you think that made a difference? That it's your friends control the monsters essentially?
I think that
Yeah, I
that did
think
make a
that's
difference,
important.
but I think it makes less of a difference than I think it should. Like I think that's definitely important and has been very valuable. Like having a succinct kind of concept that is an original thing that for people to get excited about, but probably that if it didn't have that, like just a flashy trailer kind of has such an impact that unfortunately, I think there are lots of things that have just as interesting of a hook, but just don't have elements that make a good trailer.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
just don't go
I mean, I
anywhere
think the
with
trailer
them.
itself kind of was successful because of it had its own hooks as well. It was a bit novel, which is the main thing. We thought it was going to be not that good because it wasn't a normal trailer. It was too long and all this stuff. We didn't think it would go that well. But then I think that's what from what people were saying, that's like a big part of why people liked it. That it was showing things in a novel way. It was just gameplay footage, and it was the art was quite the sort of fidelity of the animation and the art was really good, and they had this narrator and all that stuff. So it was kind of doing things in a different way, maybe. It's hard to tell though. Yeah.
So
We stressed about it so much, and we
well, that's
agreed.
good. How long did you spend on that trailer, say, before you released it?
Probably about a month.
Both of you full time?
For Barney. No, just Barney mainly.
Okay. That's a significant
so.
investment.
Yeah.
But paid off.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think it was probably it was the sort of thing where it wasn't meant to take that long, and we were both really stressed about how long it was taking. But you've invested in it, and then you're kind of like, well, yeah, it takes as long as it takes.
And then as
I think
together, you could see that it was going to be good and worth spending more time.
Yeah.
we thought it was going to be.
Well, we were pretty excited about it, but then when you're working on it every day for weeks and weeks or whatever, or you're just seeing kind of cuts every day or whatever, you get pretty sick of it. So you're like, I don't know, I just see all these problems with it. I don't see the things that I thought were really hilarious at first or whatever.
Once we put in the proper voiceover, I was a lot more convinced. For most of the time I was working on it, it had voiceover that was recorded with mine and Dave's voices just as placeholder, so that we kind of knew what to time it to, and so that we could iterate and change our mind without having to re-record a proper session. So I just say some crap into the microphone and change my mind or think, oh, this needs to be quicker, say something quicker. And so most of the time it was like and we had not voice actors at all. It was our terrible voices, and we were like, this isn't going anywhere. This is going to be crap. It wasn't until we did a proper recording session and spent ages mixing in the proper voice that I started to think like, oh, this is almost like a proper trailer.
By proper recording session, we just went around to our friend's house and got into all the voices and drank beer.
Yeah.
It wasn't like actual recording studio or an actual voice actor.
So your general marketing advice there is make a really good trailer, post it once on Twitter, and then go to bed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Go to bed.
Do something you think is probably not that good, and then post it, and then success.
Well,
I think even though we were really worried about it, every step of the way we were really attempting to follow rules of keeping it succinct, keeping it short and sweet, trying to make sure that every important idea is communicated in the first 20 seconds, so that everyone has such short attention spans on the internet, and so if they're not sold on continuing to watch the trailer in the first 20 seconds, it doesn't matter how good the rest of the trailer is. So the first 20 seconds has to say this is worth watching. These are all the exciting things that you might see if you can be bothered sitting down for the other 80 seconds of this trailer, and that's really important. And,
I thought the first 20 seconds were when you slowly fade in your logo.
Yeah, and I see that so much, and especially on early access games, and when you're in that Steam queue and things are showing you, or when you're in the early access thing and things are showing you those games, my finger
I was just
is
ready to go,
trying to click the next button so hard, and you've got to physically stop yourself from clicking next, and it's got to do something really quickly, I think. But
actually,
so many games still do that. They just fading in.
Yeah, it's an easy temptation to fall to, and it's particularly bad when you're a new studio and no one cares about your logo or who you are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So I just want to ask you a little bit about early access, and then I'll go back and get some questions here. So you got greenlit early 2014, and were you always planning to go to early access? It
Yeah, it
kind of
made
just started
sense. We
around
kind
then.
of, no, it had been around for a little while, but it was relatively new. Because we got this film Vic grant thing, and made us work out, what are we actually going to do, and
Did they need
have
a
a
like
plan
a
for things.
budget and a
Yeah, they needed
date?
like budget and schedule and um, like SWOT analysis and blah blah blah,
Yeah,
lots of stuff. Um, and so we're like, okay, and like revenue estimates or whatever, I don't business plan-y kind of stuff.
yep.
So that that was probably one of the good things about going for that at least was just um, we had to do all this business stuff that was kind of scary stuff that we were just putting off, and it meant that we had a bit more of an idea about like how we wanted to try and get it out there. I mean, at that time, we were thinking, oh, this is a weird little game. We'll just probably put it on our website. It won't be an actual like getting a game on Steam. That would be crazy,
Yeah.
That would be like that's for real game developers. um, yeah, we really kind of didn't feel like we thought that would be a big game changing thing, and I mean it is compared to not being on Steam, but it's like especially now it's not like um,
But yeah,
just getting a game on Steam means you're going to be successful in any way. Um, I forgot where I was going with that.
I was asking about early access. Why?
Oh
And
yeah,
why did you choose early access over just waiting for a full release?
yeah. Partly
I mean, I think
because we wanted to sort of gauge how big the game or how successful the game would be, uh, with the, hoping that we'd be able to keep working on it a lot longer. But we sort of we sort of had this idea of like, okay, well, we've got this amount of content that we'd be happy putting out the game, and we think people would like the game with this amount of content. So we'll do that as early access, and then we'll keep working on it. And we've sort of planned with the Film Vic stuff to work on it for another sort of 6 months or something. Um, and that kind of meant that we could uh, play it by ear a bit more and like work out, okay, what are the fun things we want to spend more time on and that kind of thing.
I think that the main thing was we weren't very confident in how it would be received.
Like, would
And
anyone
so
buy it?
early access allowed us to feel our way and put something out there and see if people actually liked it before we then decided, oh, well, it's worth investing 4 years of our time only to find out nobody really liked the idea in the first place.
Okay,
So
cool.
we could put it out there and just see if people liked it and go, okay, well, if they only like it a tiny bit, then, we've got this minimum kind of version that we can just clean it up, finish that off, and put it out. But then they liked it a lot more than we expected, so we thought, oh, good, because we kind of like to do this and we kind of like to do that, and but I think that's not relevant for many games. I
So it was
think,
kind of a way of testing the waters to decide on the scope of the finished game you wanted to build.
yeah, and letting the scope grow organically. But
Okay.
that's
I mean,
only
we had an idea of a game we'd be happy with, but then a game we'd be more happy with, as if
Yeah.
we can justify doing that. Um, Whereas, yeah, I definitely wouldn't have wanted to go on early access with a game we weren't happy with and just assume that early access means we'll be able to someday get it to the point we'd be happy with it.
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Really, we're never
We
happy
made
with
sure that
it.
like the very first version that went on early access was something that
When was
we
that,
would
by
be
the way?
proud to just call the final version if we had to,
Okay. Yeah.
and that was kind of our rule that at any point we would kind of feel okay to just say, all right, it's over, and there was nothing missing from the game ever that was completely essential. So people were never paying for a half-baked idea. They were always paying for a complete game, but a complete game that maybe didn't have all the content that we would like to put into it.
So when you made that decision to go for early access, was there any other games made by small teams doing it?
Yeah, early access had been around for a while,
But
so
were
I
there
think
anyone
Nuclear
like
Throne was
yourselves who
already.
were making a game that you were looking
Um,
at going, oh, let's do what they're doing? Or were you guys kind
yeah,
of
I
on the
mean,
forefront of
I
it?
think Broforce was already on early access, and um, uh, yeah, Nuclear Throne.
Yeah.
Those are two I looked at a lot.
Okay.
Um, in terms of there was lots. Yeah, I
And
think there was quite a lot.
how long have
We
you?
weren't that early onto it.
Wait, when did you start selling on early access on Steam?
It was like August 2014, I think.
Okay. So it's about a year and a half now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're just constantly updating the game
Yeah,
generally?
trying to be constant. We're constantly working on it. The updates sort of take as long as they take usually.
And
Um,
Yeah. The
how?
updates are between like 1.5 and sort of 3 or so months, I think.
Okay, cool.
Whereas initially we had thought just every month we do another update.
mm.
It's like
But
Nuclear Throne, we're doing it every week.
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
no,
I can't
No,
imagine
no,
we can do
no.
I don't know how they
that.
do it either.
No.
There's so much peripheral stuff. Every time you update, there's packaging it up, testing, sending it off, um, and then watching the forums and making sure you haven't broken anything. And
And
that,
even just telling people what you've changed.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
just
yeah.
contacting everyone,
Doing an
putting out
update
some
TIFF
marketing
and
stuff,
Hmm.
yeah,
and that ends up taking at least half a week, usually up to a week, where you're not actually making content anymore, where you're just supporting putting the update out. And
Yes,
so, yeah, I don't know, I don't know how they do it every week. They obviously have
they're
their pipeline
they're
figured out.
insane. And at the same time,
I
like
think
the
if they
likes of
break something horrible, if they break something horribly, it's only going to be broken for a week, so it doesn't matter so much or something.
Yeah,
yeah,
I
it's
guess they don't.
it's the whole agile feel of just keep releasing, and yeah, stuff is broken for less long. Valve came out and said do bigger updates and make a big deal out
Yeah,
of them. So they were doing
Oh,
like
yeah,
whole movies around their TF2 updates.
yeah.
They say that works better because it gets people
it
excited
makes
about it
sense.
and
Like,
gets people to
yeah,
come
We
back
it's a
and try
press.
them.
It's an event for the press when you add a bunch of a bigger update, and it's an event for people because people like to feel like, oh, cool. I've just seen there's a new thing in crawl. Like, let's get people around to play it again. Whereas if that's every week, you get a bit
Maybe not.
tired of it pretty
Yep.
quickly. Um,
Yeah, I think our approach was to make them the smallest they could possibly be while still being a noteworthy event. So, if it was so small that there's no exciting new feature to talk about, then that's not really worth its own update. So we tried to make sure that each update was, yeah, noteworthy, something to talk about and say,
Okay.
oh, this is
Yeah.
exciting that this is happening. Something that if we hassled the press about it, that they'd have something to say instead of just like, well, updates continue on this
There were
thing,
some bug fixes. Yeah. Okay. And what about dealing with your fan base? So once you hit early access, people are going to start loving or hating certain things, and I've certainly found as soon as you change anything, all hell breaks loose. How have you guys dealt with that?
yeah, yeah. I mean, generally the Steam forum's been okay. Like it gets stressful, especially if we haven't released an update for a while. It gets quite stressful, like looking on there and you're just really scared that people are going to be angry at you. Um, I mean, that's probably partly just working at home and getting a bit kind of inside your own head. Um, but in general, the fan stuff's been positive. It's just kind of a bit scary. Um,
I think
I
I
haven't
think
really
the
had
Steam
big
forums.
negative things.
So sorry,
No, that's right. Yeah.
I think the Steam forums have been incredibly positive and so much more positive than I really expected. But um, it's harder to handle other people paying attention to my game and having opinions about it than I ever would have expected as well.
Okay.
Like
Mm.
it's just really hard not to be upset when someone doesn't like something new that I put in, and it's really hard not to just feel crap when when people think something's unbalanced, or it's really hard to just be really kind of objective about it, I guess.
And usually the loudest people aren't always, you can't simply listen to people. You have to kind of trust your gut.
And I mean that's just the internet. Like there's no mild opinions on the internet because no one would hear them because they're lost under the under the really strong opinions, and so even if you do have a mild opinion, you tend to phrase it as a really strong opinion. So you definitely can't take it on face value. But just if you're having a hard day and then you go on the forums to like answer a few things and you just see a bunch of negative comments or complaints about things, it's hard. And so
have you ever
have to wait till I'm in like the right positive headspace to be like, I'm in the mood for this, and then go on. And then when I am in that headspace, then it's easy, and I see negative people and I say, oh, sorry, and I try and get to the bottom of why is this guy unhappy, because people really want to suggest solutions, and like 99% of the time someone telling you what the solution is just not applicable to the game or to the way you're building it or whatever. But if you look at the solution that they're suggesting and sort of try and like reverse engineer what the reason was that they suggested that because they're unhappy with this or unhappy with that, often you can come up with something, a useful piece of information out of even an incredibly negative thing or a fairly crazy sounding suggestion. So
one thing that's been really positive, I guess, or feels positive, is when you've got someone who's really like angry or seems really upset about like balance or anything in the game, and then you kind of give them just a reply like, oh yeah, we're trying our best or something, and we're not sure if we'll be able to do that, but we'd like to do everything, but it's hard or whatever. And then they just reply saying, oh, that's cool, I just love the game so much, you guys are so amazing, and it just makes you feel like,
just to
wow,
remind
he's
them
not
that
actually a complete jerk, he's actually someone who likes the game.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
The people get angry, in fairness to them, usually are really passionate about your game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so it's really hard to remember that all the time.
True.
That's always been a thing to try and remember is, there've been people angry about not having online multiplayer, and really whenever the people are seriously angry, it's because they like the game so much that they care, and that's I think just goes back to that same thing of your biggest enemy is just people not knowing that you exist, and it's like those people being really angry at you, that's not a sign that you've got problems. Yeah, that's a sign that people care enough. So that's not bad.
Yeah, that's worth remembering, because some days I feel positive and I go read Steam reviews.
Yeah.
And they just get me down.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. You're right. Like the fact that anyone's buying your game to leave a Steam user review is amazing.
Yeah, and even like a lot of the time, I think if people just have nothing to say about it, like that's that's where like it's just not touching them at all. That I think that's the most. I think that's the most worrying thing. So people feel strongly.
Very cool. You guys, if you made a new game, would you do early access again?
Depends on the game. I think it made sense for Crawl. Definitely wouldn't make sense for a lot of games. Like anything that's linear, anything that has a single narrative.
I think so many games that go on there are just not appropriate for early access, but Crawl was uniquely appropriate for it. I think basically anything that plays like a sport rather than a story. So because a sport, you need heaps of people to play it and have them find what's wrong about the rules, and then you need to adjust the rules, and they're finding the bad dominant strategies and imbalances. And there's just no way we could do that amount of testing, and to so to put an update out and to have instantly thousands of people play it, and you'll get 15 messages back saying, "Hey, this happened and it broke my game." Like we can run a lot of tests and have our friends around and play all night, and still we've only played like 60 games or something, but the thousands of games that are getting played by those people, that's really important for things that are intended to be played over and over again, kind of like a sport. But it would just kill anything that's not intended to play like that.
That's a good way of thinking about it, because it can be hard to evaluate your game in those terms. Like what would make this good for early access? Okay,
Yeah,
I'm just
yeah,
gonna grab a couple questions here, which I've been ignoring. So Andrew Hines was asking, do you guys feel like all the experience in big industry helps now with your indie work?
Yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, it all helps. Like, uh,
What probably helps like the most?
what helps the most? I mean, the thing I found was working in a new company. Like when you first get there, you just learn so much so fast. You feel like out of your depth at first, and everything works differently, and you're experiencing how completely all these people do something completely differently, and you learn a lot. After a few years at one place, you kind of, it starts to get, you start to kind of get in a rut or something. You start to feel like, oh yeah, I'm not really learning as much anymore. And you might have some position changes where you might be leading a team and you learn a lot more there, or you might get to work on a different style of project. But if the projects are kind of longer, that doesn't happen that often. So the things I learned were just keep the scope down. Like I think one of the reasons we're two people is because we've both worked at big companies. Like we know that a big team costs a lot of money. A big team is slow and unwieldy, and you waste a lot of time, and you don't get to. It's not as fun. You don't get to have as much sort of input. And yeah, if you've got a big team working on a project, that project's more likely to have to get canned because it costs a lot more.
yeah. I think scoping and managing teams is one of those things that we learned so much from working at a big company, and that's the sort of stuff that when I talk to new developers and they've never made a game and they're really excited to start something and they're talking about things of a certain scale, I feel really worried for them, because it's really easy to underestimate how much time and effort goes into just organizing like
Five people, yeah.
5 people to work together and not waste time, and to not
Keeping everyone up to date with everything.
like just putting 5 people in a room, you don't get 5 times as much work as one person in a room. If they're all trying to work on a thing that's supposed to be synchronized like that, you need amazing management of those 5 people, or amazing communication, and then you still only get 3 times as much work maybe out of those 5 people, just because of the extra communication time and the meeting time, and the like misunderstood concepts, and and then the more you have roles split into specialized individual people, the more there's going to be time where we just don't need modeling today, or we just don't need texturing today, or we just don't need, marketing today. And so you end up with people just twiddling their thumbs quite a bit, and if they're all on the clock and burning a salary, then that's really hard. So the more you can have multiple, tasks just being done within one person, just the more you cut down on that wasted time. You cut down on meeting time between those disciplines, because you just have the meeting spontaneously in your own head. Say when I'd be implementing something at a company that has animation and design and modeling all in separate kind of sectors, and then you realize that this thing that's being implemented, it doesn't work the way that the designer wanted it to work, and in order to try and make it work like that, you have to change the animation and or the model, or you can keep the model and animation it's got, but you'd have to change the design, and that probably wouldn't work with the code. The amount of meetings that you're suddenly having and like the amount of people that you have to talk to just to go like, this thing just needs to be a tiny bit different, and you have to refer to the designer, make sure he's happy with the changes to the model and all these things, whereas if I'm just doing the art and the animation and the design myself, just spontaneously I can just go, yeah, I'll just change that, and then straight into Photoshop, change it, and it's done,
Yeah.
And so unless you're really happy to spend a lot of your time organizing communication and managing other people, you know, you're not gonna get the reward out of making a bigger thing that you think, because you're not hand making it, you're managing other people to make it. And I think the skill and the interest of managing other people to make work is an extremely different skill set to,
Creating.
just making art or doing programming. And the people, they're not very overlapping, kind of personality kind of types in a lot of cases that would be, a great programmer. That's
the
not,
programmers.
that's, yeah, exactly. That's very often not the same guy who's great at organizing a lot of other
Sure.
programmers. So, yeah, it's easy to forget all that connecting tissue and communication, I think.
So long term, do you think you guys will try and stay really lean, like stay 2 people?
Yeah,
5
definitely.
years
I
time?
think lean's good. I I still would like to. I don't know. It's kind of an exciting idea to grow and get a studio and get people, but I think if we do that, I'd want to be having us, like, having 2 people teams
Yeah, yeah,
still,
yeah.
and
And I think that's a
just
very
making more
viable
stuff
approach. You can
because
do
that'd
that.
be fun. Like, yeah, yeah. Um,
Okay. Tell you what, I
mm.
think I've kept you a bit over an hour now. We might wrap up here. This is very interesting. So thank you so much for giving up your time late in the evening in Australia to chat to all of us.
No
No
Um,
worries.
worries.
Hugely interesting. I look forward to your eventual crawl release. Um, yeah, I'm just really looking forward to it. Um,
Awesome.
so big thanks from everyone here, I think. Sure, they'll say it in the chat. Yeah, there we go. So
Yeah,
thanks so
thanks.
much for joining us. So that was Dave and Barney from Powerhoof. And thanks so much. I'll catch up with you guys again.
No
Awesome.
worries. Cheers.
Thank you.
Take care,
See
guys.
ya.